Here.
Hi, Bill.
I had some trouble getting in, but
Hey, no worries. You're here
but
among friends.
we made it.
You
Will,
made it.
Will
One
should
of
be
those
right
days.
behind me. Yeah, Will's right
Excellent.
behind me.
Excellent. So welcome to the BA Book Nook with one of our favorite people, Yulia. And before we get into the intro on all of her amazing accomplishments, I am Steph Hawkins with the Bluegrass chapter, and this is our BA Book Nook where we get together and we get to talk to the authors of amazing books. And so, as we always say, what is the best time to have? The best time to have is with all of our friends. So, welcome to the BA Book Nook. We do things a little differently in this book nook. Typically, book nooks require people to read things in advance and come prepared and all of that. We just ask that you show up, and if you want to ask a question, feel free. Engage at any time. Where it's just that type of book nook where we snuggle up or cozy up and have some conversation. So, um, the Bluegrass chapter has had the honor of of engaging with, and that isn't quite the right word, engaging with Yulia for quite some time. And like I say, she's is truly one of my favorite people. And I've had the opportunity to have several different discussions, and as well as recently, we were able to honor her with a nomination, an award, excuse me, from the Bluegrass chapter. She is now part of our BA Hall of Fame for 2025. A round of applause for Yulia. I put a
Thank
link
you.
in the chat so you can see, and we are so honored to have you not just be here today, but to always be such a support to BAs, the community, and as well as our chapter. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Steph, and everyone. It's always a pleasure to work with. You're my favorite IIBA chapter in the world.
Shh, we won't tell anyone,
No.
or we can, or we can. So, so I hopefully everybody has had the opportunity before to engage with Yulia. If not, you are in for a treat. So, um, Yulia's is Yulia. I never say your name right. We have to
Kosarenko.
see at the beginning. I had it already. And you are a consultant, author, coach, course creator, and your career has spanned more than 25 years, bringing in IT and business together with business analysis, architect analytics, and change management. We've talked before about your prior book, BA Mindsets, and I've read that so many times. It's ingrained in my memory, and now I've had the delight and pleasure of reading your newest book, Business Analytics. Uh, and so tonight, that's what we're going to talk about. So is everybody ready? Are we ready? Okay, think so. So let's get started then.
Can I ask the first question?
You most certainly can.
Uh,
You know we're flexible.
I want to know where is it sold? Is it on Amazon?
it's on the publisher's website, which is Canadian Scholars. So it's listed on Amazon, but it's not available directly yet. Apparently, we as business analysts know how companies try to optimize and minimize expenses. So Amazon now doesn't necessarily want to stock up, I guess, new books until later if they're not their books. So they're going to be doing drop shipping where if you order it, they're going to order it from the publisher. Publisher is going to send it. Amazon will repackage it and so on. But
Okay.
you can get it from and I'll post the link one more time
Okay.
in the
Great.
chat. You can get it from the publisher if there's a hard copy and ebook rental because it's a textbook. So
Is there
you
a
you
digital?
have to bring some
Is
business to Canada.
Yes, absolutely. Is there a digital version? Can
Yes,
I get
there
it?
is a digital version
Okay.
and there is also a digital rental if you kind
Excellent.
of don't want to commit. So I just popped it in the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. And Bill, did you have more questions?
No,
Okay.
it's just I'm going to be on vacation next week, so I figured I'd get it and I could read it while I'm sitting at the beach.
It is perfect. You're going to read this at the beach?
Yeah,
Excellent.
maybe poolside.
I think so.
Are you
Exactly.
preparing for bad weather?
No, this is my relaxing time.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, so Bill, to give you some, let's talk about some insights into the book, right? Like the reasons why why Yulia even wrote the book. So, when you think about inspiration and all of the work that goes into creating, such an excellent piece of work, can you share with us what your inspiration was? What drove you to really, spend all that time and uh, thought into writing this book?
Yeah. So with this particular book, I think the first need was of me as an instructor, not finding the right textbook on the market. I was invited to plan this course many years ago. It was 2019. It was before ChatGPT, right? Before all this AI boom. But of course, business analytics was quite popular. And part of my task was to find the textbook for this new course that I was invited to develop, Introduction to Analytics. And it was meant for people who may be completely new to computer science, to information technology, to data, because this program basically accepts bachelor, like anyone from with bachelor degree from any background, right? If you want to get like another profession. And I struggled. And I think that the pattern that I found is similar in different areas where you have some, big 500, 600 page textbooks, which
Right?
probably would take Bill 5 vacations to get through, right? If not more,
10.
because they're just so big and ambitious and they're written by teams of people. And you can never get through that book with students
Right.
in one semester. It's not possible. So you
Okay.
just pretend that you're learning, right? Because it's just too big. And same in the world of analytics, there was some big textbook and there was some very complex text just focused on statistics and programming and coding and going in depth.
Right.
But if I want to find something introductory to ease someone in, to give them foundations, I didn't find anything. There were books that were very superficial, a little bit
Right.
like, what a chat GPT would write today. But they were not good enough because they were just skimming the surface and they were too cheerful. They were just talking about how data is amazing and data can solve all your problems. So they were full of rah-rah. But again, they didn't explain to you what you need to know and what are the real problems in an organization. So
Okay.
I ended up creating a lot of my own learning materials, like a patchwork of things. And at some point, I was like, okay, if it looks like it's gonna, eventually I'll have enough materials for a book.
Okay.
And then, I someone gave me this idea. Why don't you try to write it as a textbook?
Okay. So,
That's
y- so you really rose to the challenge of that gap of people wanting to say more than I can talk data analytics and have a conversation, but not really know enough. And then the space where it really just gets mind-blowingly too much. It doesn't isn't people can't relate to it because they're trying to learn or they're trying to apply it to their situation. So that really does help meet that need. And then based on my experiences with this book and your other books, it does really apply to that, meet that need because you can use it, you can leverage it, you can understand, and it's in consumable pieces. So that way, whether you're, somebody new who's really trying to learn and they don't have a great foundation, but they could really greatly leverage it, or somebody with a little more experience, they can find all the great nuggets and really just start applying it immediately. So that is great. And then from what I understand, your ongoing classes that you have starting this fall, you're going to be leveraging this book in your content as well.
Yes,
Is
yes.
that
So we're
correct?
gonna switch over to this. This is gonna be our new textbook for my course. So, the slides and the test bank and all the materials I created now they're all ready for me to use and also for others because uh, I know there's a lot of educational institutions now have some kind of a data analytics program. And
Right.
when we did our market research with the publisher together, we basically, they asked around and I asked around, and it seems to be a common problem to have a textbook that is actually manageable and that allows someone to learn and actually, focus them on things that are important to know. So I hope that maybe other institutions will also adopt it.
Okay, great. Do you no, thinking about that course material and being able to apply it in a methodical fashion so people can pick it up, grasp it, apply it. Will you be from like a chapter perspective, coming back and taking nuggets from different chapters and then sharing those pieces with us so we have, many interesting, exciting events to look forward to about your new book? Is that something we can, start thinking
Sure,
about?
we can talk
Right.
about it, of course, because
Okay.
the chapters are like a path into analytics. And it's
Right.
funny, when I wrote my first book, and maybe that's how my brain works with both books. When I planned them, I needed to make a map of the book first, right?
Right.
I can't just sit and write without knowing the structure. So I start with the structure, with taxonomy, was literally like list of chapters, and I did it in the first book. And I did it here because through all these like 5 years of teaching, I could see, again, I had basically a lot of real life experience. I've seen, like, I think my file now has about 1,000 students from all different backgrounds,
Okay.
and I every day I would see where they struggle, right? This things that they don't understand. So the
Right.
sequence of chapters is kind of helping them to gradually, build on these foundations and, like really get to the point where at the end we talked about why business analytics projects fail, why data science initiatives fail, why AI initiatives fail. And a lot of it goes back to that, lack of understanding in organizations of those concepts that went into the book.
Right. So a lot of your like the creative nature of writing the book truly is not just from the way that your brain thinks about mapping things out and making sure that it's logical and makes sense, but it's also in a creative way filling the gap for or the need for what your students are asking, whether they're actually asking or whether that's what you're experiencing and
Yeah.
you're leveraging it from just many aspects, right? You have different students across different areas because you teach many different topics to really help you like hone in on how you think or how you feel that they could best learn this in a consumable manner. And data analytics is so important, right? Whether we call it that or not, it is a daily thing that we do, right? You as a as a BA, as a product owner, you really, leverage business analytics. So from that thought, what were some of the key points that you really hope that the nuggets that you hope that people are able to really just quickly pick up in your book? Are there any ones that are either your favorites or you just really want people to walk away with those thoughts or those concepts?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I was doing, and just maybe to walk back a little bit, even though this book was foremost for students taking college
Hmm.
courses, but it is also for business people. Because in a way, I think business people who want to introduce analytics projects, or who want to, you know, make their company be more analytics driven, instead of making those gut driven decisions, they also need to understand, how to use data and what are the different types of data, and what does it mean to how do you articulate your analytics requirements, as a stakeholder or as a product owner. So I think for both of those, first of all, like I help to define concepts, starting
Okay.
again with different types of data and truly understanding them, because I think because it's developing so fast, there's so many buzzwords, and they use those buzzwords without understanding them. And even, the buzzword Gen AI, which actually means generative AI and not general AI, even that is causing confusions, and machine learning, right? So there's a lot of confusion, and people jump to conclusions when they hear terms. But I also included like a case study, which is telling a story of a company and how this company is trying to collect data and apply analytics to solve their problems. And I use kind of a very real life example of a company that's doing, snow removal and, gardening and yard work, landscaping and so on. And a lot of little tips which highlight where things go wrong in real organizations. And I think this is another part of what I'm trying to do with my students, because they come to campus, they sit in auditorium, we talk, we have slides, we have laser pointers, we still have that educational environment, but they need to be ready for the workplace. And just like with business analyst, when I created the videos, what does it really mean to be a business analyst? So you start on your day one, what are you going to do? Like what are you doing? Same with people who go into analytics. They may not actually understand what to expect. So I'll tell them, look, don't expect perfect architecture, because the bigger the organization, the worse is going to be a mess in which their systems are and lack of integration.
Right.
And preparing them for this real life and how you do analytics, how you work with other people, what different roles in organization you will encounter, how to call. So even that like practical part of it, I think that's also like really important, because we want to prepare them to be effective in the workplace, not just know some theory, right? So I think that was always going through my mind with many examples, even in the book, to talk about real companies and what you should be ready for.
Okay. And so really it's you're preparing people. You're making sure that they understand it's just not a concept, helping to solve real problems. I'm repeating what you were saying to get to a point. But really it's the importance of solving the right problem, right? And aligning to the stakeholder needs. Because if you don't really understand the stakeholders, the needs, the constraints, the issues, what they're trying to say or not say, you're not going to be as successful as you could. Do you have any either examples or situations that you really, when you think about stakeholders and helping them to learn and understand, as well as your students, that come to mind?
Yeah, so for stakeholders, for people from business, for example, who are involved in an analytics project, or maybe they just manage operations, they're managing a business function, and they want to understand how can I use analytics, to make my department more efficient. I think for them, a couple of things that they need to understand, and I was trying to help, is what data they actually own. What are these different types of data? For example, transactional data, right? Different business events that they track, master data that needs to be very accurate. Where do they find the data? What is their responsibility for the quality of that data? So that's one aspect, right? Because before you get good analytics, you need to actually have good data. And frankly, people who work in, reporting and analytics department are not really responsible for the quality of operational data. It's business people who own it. So it goes back to the data governance. So for any business person who wants to get good analytics to help them, make better decisions, they in turn need to take responsibility for data governance, for watching and maintaining and validating and making sure that accurate data goes in or is collected, for example, from the customers or from transactions. Then they are responsible for analytics requirements, right? And that's where, again, be connected to business analysis, because when you're building analytics solutions, it is similar. I know it's not completely the same, but it's similar to building software, right? You have to understand requirements. You may be building pieces of executable code that will actually do something, right? Like even a dashboard produces things. Maybe it's a very high level coding, right? That will be done. But still, you have to articulate your requirements. Like, what is it you need? And, a really important part of it is that we have to teach business stakeholders to look beyond reports and dashboards, right? They're so used. I mean, the traditional business intelligence, I navigate to this report, I click on a couple of filters, here, boom, comes my report. Wonderful, great, but it's, that's not enough. So nowadays, especially, if you truly want to use AI technologies in some way, you need to embed those analytic solutions in your process so that in real time, it gives you recommendations, it gives you better decisions, which means that you literally are integrating these analytic solutions in your overall, application architecture. So that goes to understanding what is architecture, what do you mean, like how do we integrate it. So I think it really, in a way, I mean, we should put more responsibility on business people to actually understand the whole ecosystem. Otherwise, it's not going to be successful.
Right. So really, it's trying to fit how it fits into the broader enterprise structure, right? Stakeholder needs, what do you have, looking beyond what you have, what was delivered. Because quite honestly, with reports and dashboards, they're just something that somebody curated. It could be based on bad data, incomplete, inaccurate, but it looks
Yeah.
pretty and shiny, and people are making decisions and maybe not even questioning really the quality of it. And it,
Yeah.
you know what, I really like your conversation about like the data governance, the data quality, and all of that kind of work, because a lot of times people aren't necessarily focusing on that, those other enterprise or other effects in the organization that have a direct impact um, on what you're trying to do, right? Because you don't, if unless you're part of data governance or data quality, you're dealing with the aftermath of it, but you don't actually have the ability to effect it. But if you can provide data analytics or show the cause and effect of it, you may be able to do so. So from a BA perspective, like say a traditional BA that is saying, okay, I know I need to know more, do more with data analytics. These sound like they're like the core foundations of taking your foundational understanding of who you are as a BA and the work that you do, like with the requirements, understanding stakeholder needs, and then applying them towards a business analytic framework. So can you help me like walk across that? Like I'm a traditional BA and I really need to develop my skills in business analytics. And knowing what you just said, what else should I be thinking of? What else can I do to like just leverage the existing skills and
Mm.
expand them in this area?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think if we look from a perspective of a business analyst, I mean, your job is to support development of solutions that solve business
Mhm.
problems. Now, there are different ways to solve business problems, right? Some business analysts may work on a, new workflow system. So this system will optimize and automate workflows, for example, that allow us to provide customer service or, receive tickets or provide warranty or whatever. Other analysts may work on another type of solution. So we can think of analytics solutions as, first of all, another type of a solution could be almost sometimes standalone, like a special solution, or it's a part of another enterprise project that you're working on. So you're
Okay.
developing, for example, you're working on requirements for a new workflow solution. But as part of it, we also need to provide analytics that are going to, monitor how things are going, help us make decisions, etc., etc. So we know from experience that the way we analyze requirements, is influenced by, the type of problem you're solving and the type of a solution. So with analytics requirements, they are really kind of, there's two big things. One is understanding the problem still.
Okay.
So our traditional, maybe interviewing and having discovery workshops and trying to understand objective, that's still important. After that comes, and there is a so-called analytics life cycle. So that analytics life cycle starts still with understanding the business problem, right? That's where we see traditional business analysis. After it, you need to figure out what is the data that is required to solve this problem, right? So this is where you need to understand what are the different data sources, where does data come from, what are the different types of data,
Okay.
why reference data is important. For example, like standardized codes and categorizations, because they actually help us, our analytics to be consistent, right? We're comparing
Right.
apples to apples everywhere. Then there is uh, asking those analytics questions, because again, going back to reports and dashboards, it's just one type of analytics. It's called descriptive analytics. It
Okay.
basically just reports what happened. we sold so many widgets. 25% of our customers left last month. Those are just the facts about the past. And this is what you find in reports and dashboards. But that is not good enough. So a business analyst, ideally, if you can help your stakeholders ask the next level of analytics questions. For example, why are customers leaving? Or what is going on with this product? Or what are the factors that influence how much customers are spending, on this page? Or what are specific actions that lead our customers to, drop the shopping cart? So then we're doing some diagnostics. And that's a little bit harder, right? It's a little bit like research and development, right? Or trying to figure things out. So, and I'm going to draw a parallel with all these discussions about whether AI can replace business analysts and talking about how important it is for business analysts. What is it that they're doing that AI cannot do? And the critical thinking and knowing where to apply AI. Same like just with analytics in general, you have to know where analytics is useful, and you have to be the trusted advisor to your stakeholders. So for example, you can advise your stakeholders, hey, you know what, we can actually try to do some diagnostics. We can use analytics to help you figure out like the root cause, the reasons why this is happening. And sometimes you do it at the beginning of your project. For example, we have a business problem, but we cannot solve it before we know the root cause. And I know that we have these techniques like 5 whys and doing fishbone diagrams.
Right.
But those are not always enough. Sometimes you actually need to do some thorough data analysis, propose some hypotheses, test those hypotheses statistically, sometimes even collect additional data because, you may not have enough data to even figure out why this is happening.
Right.
So, and then when we get to, predictive analytics and AI, even helping stakeholders figure out what exactly does it mean? Where can I apply it? What is a suitable application of, say, a machine learning model? So I think that business analysts need to really understand the capabilities of different types of analytics and what problems it can solve, because you're not always going to get very intelligent, well-articulated requirements from stakeholders. And I'm not joking. I heard sometimes, executives saying, we need some low-hanging AI implementation. That's their requirement, right?
Right. And when you think about your last statement, like we need some low-hanging AI implementations, at this point, nothing can replace a BA in the work that you do in your brain and in your head, in your interactions with people, and understanding the unspoken, right? The uncommunicated, being able to understand when you have a conversation with somebody else what they haven't said, and being able to tease those questions out, or just because of your knowledge of your workplace or the people that you're working with, some of those really unspoken things. And AI in some of the tools we're using has yet to, capture that brain power. And then also too, internally understanding like what is that best approach? Like, how do you apply some of those other techniques, those hypotheses, and as it applies to your unique situations or where you think that they need to go? Because that is the power of a business analyst, right? Really being able to get in there, understand, comprehend, pick out grab the things that people are trying to say but haven't said, and really just push the effort forward, right?
No, it's your emotional intelligence and diplomacy and
Mm-hmm.
tact and
Right.
understanding what's behind, between the lines and behind the scenes. So understanding politics. I think that those definitely are the things that are crucial to success of projects. And, AI tools, and again, if we say AI, but most of the time we expect that it's, generative AI and large language models. Large language models generate content from by being trained on large volumes of content. They rehash it, they regenerate it. They will be able to summarize information for you. But again, these are all language-based tasks. They're all about aggregating information. It's not the same as coming up with something new, discovering what we don't know yet, right? That's where,
Right.
I mean, if large language model wasn't trained on that thing, and if it's something completely new, it's not going to know what to do with it. Worst case scenario, it's going to hallucinate, right? And because they're not able to tell you honestly, I don't know, right? That's not in the design. But Steph, it's interesting how there's so much conversation about business analysis, and AI is focused on how AI can be used to do the job of business analyst, right?
Right. Right.
And that's fine. I mean, AI can help us with documentation, and I'm still trying to get it to summarize meetings for me. And lately I observed how I asked a very important question, and this
Mm-hmm.
um, Gemini, I think it was, just missed it, completely missed the most important question.
Mm-hmm.
I was a bit angry about it. But that's just one side of it. Okay, we can use AI tools to do some mundane work for us. But there is another side, and I think that's the side that I also addressed in the book, that when companies want to implement AI technology or implement solutions that use AI technology, it's not necessarily about large language models and chatbots, right?
Right.
There is much more to AI. There is much more to different applications of machine learning. So forget using AI for documentation. Sure, we can experiment and we can use it, but how do you use machine learning, advanced analytics for organization to help it embed that analytics into their processes, right?
Right.
Improving operations, improving customer service,
Mhm.
automating, price optimization, building recommendation engines, optimizing logistics. Those are all complex optimization tasks that could be
Right.
solved using machine learning. But it's not just LLMs. It's different types of models, right? But for us to kind of get to the next step, we need to understand what is machine learning, what are different types of machine learning, what can those algorithms do, and then help business, articulate their requirements for these types of applications of analytics. And that's kind of a very different level from just, being a master of chatting with ChatGPT.
Right. Right. And we're going to open up to questions in just a minute, but you think about the abundance of it. I work in an organization where many of the tools now have some type of AI built in, all delivering different information. And so you say AI is good, but there's an abundance of it across the organization. So it's actually an a project to determine how best to leverage all of it in a cohesive manner. So
Yeah.
it's just not for the purpose of using it, but the outcomes have to be real and realized. And so some of the technology wouldn't be advocated to be used because it's not purposeful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because you
Mm-hmm.
have it doesn't mean it's delivering the results
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
meet the stakeholder needs.
And you also need to integrate it with all those other systems
Right.
you have in the organization. It's not only just like, again, standalone, turn to my dashboard, or
Mhm.
standalone, now turn to my copilot. It needs
Right.
to be integrated, right? Because you probably have some process in the organization that are
Mhm.
half automated or fully automated. Your drivers are driving around, and your CSRs are receiving orders, and your warehouse workers are constantly fulfilling orders. Embedding AI in those processes, that's where, when we talk about scaling AI, that's where that scaling is, right? When you apply
Okay.
it to your operations.
Okay. So you talked about hallucinate and aliens. This is to a great start. I'm just saying. So, that is, that was just the best conversation, I have to say. I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed that. And I hope everybody else here really got a lot of great nuggets of information, or just the direction we're going, the challenges that we have so far, how to really take what we're currently doing with our skill set and really start to think forward on like that next evolution of our own skill set with tools and a great approach that is being provided. So with that, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Yulia?
Do you know, I have a question. Uh,
Excellent, Bill.
do you recommend the reflowable ebook or the fixed layout?
Ooh,
Mm. Well, let me tell you, I am a fan of fixed layout only
Okay.
because I have some large pictures. Just put it this way. So I'm gonna show you. So there are some large visuals
Okay.
that I created, and I think reflowable also works, but in fixed layout you can kind of get a little bit more of that book feel. So if you
Okay.
like to have a book feel, you can try a fixed layout.
Okay. And you have to do this through Red Shelf, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the platform for
Okay.
digital. Yeah,
I gotcha. I have to get my tablet.
I
hey,
know it's like another account, right?
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
another app.
So yeah,
That's
another app.
that was an
okay.
excellent question, Bill, because I had gone through that same process myself. So
Hmm.
bringing driving value here. I'm being sincere.
Hmm. But you know what's interesting with these digital layouts, and I had to discover a lot of them because my first book I self-published it, so I had to figure it out, like Apple Books, Google Books, how are they all different, Kobo, everything is different. But it's interesting that now there's new formats are popping up like digital rentals, right? So for students especially, or for someone, who can read and then maybe I don't need to keep it because how many apps can you manage? So there's also digital rental. So I thought that was just interesting evolution, of us as readers.
So kind of like back in the old days, old school days when you'd go to the college bookstore and you'd get a book and you'd use it for however long you needed it and you turned it back in. Is it similar to that
Something
concept? You're
like that.
renting it
Yeah,
for,
something like that. Because
yeah,
students like to use digital now, and I
right.
observe how often in classes they get the PDFs of the slides and they use say a touch screen or a pad, a tablet, and they literally like right on top of the PDF. And it's funny sometimes I see like the Chinese characters and Vietnamese characters and other characters like written on top of these PDF slides. So just different ways, I guess, to interact with the content, right?
Right. Sort of old school highlighters and writing in and you're
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, but we're not printing out stuff off anymore, right?
Yeah. Nope, not anymore. All right. Well, that was a great question, Bill. Thank you. And then does anybody else have any questions that they'd like to ask? Any things that we've touched upon that they want to know, dig in a little bit deeper and know a little bit more about?
I'm just excited to read the book.
Okay. You know,
Yeah.
there will be a quiz specifically for you after you get
Excellent.
the question. No
There's
one
test
else,
questions
just
after
you.
each chapter.
Okay. All right. If no one else has any questions, I would like to close the bookend on the types of analytics. So you talked about descriptive, diagnostic, predictive,
And prescriptive.
predictive. Bam.
Prescriptive.
Okay.
There's also a concept of cognitive analytics, but we really, I mean, it's a bit of a science fiction still. Like cognitive analytics is supposed to be imitating our cognitive process, but that's more where that general AI will come in. However, it is still only research. It's in R&D stage. So from practical perspective, we talk about these four types. And prescriptive analytics means automating decision, making recommendations or full automation of a decision, right?
Okay. Okay, great. So I'm sorry, but I have to pivot back to Bill for just a moment.
Sure.
So in this, and so go along with me, Yulia, here.
Mm.
So in this reading of the book, which very happy that you're going to do that because there's so much to learn. Um, there are, let me see, chapter overviews and summaries, test your knowledge quizzes and critical thinking questions, case study project with checklists and discussion prompts, and visual aids and original diagrams to support learning. So, Bill, do you have any
Yeah.
questions about any of those four really rich features of her book that you would like to ask before you go on vacation? So just to make sure that, everything turns out okay during your vacation reading.
I think I'll be okay.
Okay, all
As
right.
long as I can download, you know what? The first thing I noticed is that when I downloaded it to my phone, that for the red shelf is that it doesn't let me create an account. It only has for logging in. So I figure maybe on my Samsung tablet it'll be different. I'm not sure why, because I mean, it acts like it assumes you have an account. Maybe you have to download first or purchase it.
So we
Okay.
should make a project out of Bill buying a book. So Aaron,
A
can you
process
put
flow.
that, can you put that on the next chapter that will
Bill buys a book.
Bill buys a book? That is full of rich features. Everybody, Bill is the president of the IIBA Bluegrass chapter.
Oh,
So,
Bill, if you're going to Cancun, you will be pleased to know that most of my pictures were born in Cancun when I was on vacation there 2 years ago. And I brought all these printouts with me to try to, figure out which images to make and what pictures to
Ah,
best.
so there's
We're going
synergy
back to the
there.
source.
Yes, that's awesome.
indeed.
Yeah,
Okay, so Bill, you are set up for success. And then anyone else, do you have questions about this? Because truly, we do want you to enjoy the book. You're going to learn so much. You really will.
I have to
Oh,
say, I think it's cool the rental. It has a 180-day or 365-day rental, as well as you can purchase it
mhm.
and also purchase the hard copy. That's really awesome.
There's options for sure, for sure. And it's formatted to fit a typical college semester, right? The typical number of classes you're
Right.
gonna have in a semester.
So continuing on with this theme, and then we'll get back to all these core concepts. What do you think is when you were writing the book, what was one of the most challenging concepts that you had to try to explain in simple, practical terms? Because I want to make sure that Bill focuses on that as well. And then I'll quit picking on him. But I'm having
Yeah,
fun, sorry.
I think that I mean, there's obviously lots of sources, and there is
Mhm.
lots of things that already exist in the industry, and you have to collect for the book, right? It's not like I invented the bicycle, right? But I think connecting it all together and trying to connect it to how things work in real organization, that was a challenge that I was constantly trying to address. So I included checklists, like visualization checklist, project success checklist, data acquisition checklist, um, thinking of maturity of an organization, like what are the different components, like what are the factors in organization that help you be successful. So really trying to tie it to how organizations work. What is the typical, even like where does the analytics team fit in a real organization in terms of work structure, like who manages it, right? What are the different roles on the team? What do they do on the project? So I think that these were the things that I found missing from other books, is trying to make it practical. Like, okay, so you know what is predictive analytics? Great. So you understand what are different types of machine learning. Wonderful. But how do you run a project? Like you still need to do requirements, you still need to do design, you need to understand what data sources you have and how can you extract data from them and stuff like that. So it's probably a little bit longer than what you wanted, but I think it's just about linking it to real organization. So, Bill, if you have any current projects that are, trying to embed analytics or create different types of analytics or use advanced analytics, I think that that would be really, helpful to hear whether you found something to help you tie it to real challenges in real companies.
Right. Right, because it really, I mean, data analytics is a project, right? You don't go into it willy-nilly. Similar to writing the book, you need a structure, you need a plan, you need the right stakeholders, you need to understand what outcomes you're trying to achieve. Like, why are you doing this? So that way it's not just analyzing data and hopefully something pops. You're going into it with, I mean, yeah, you can look at it from that perspective, but like, what are you really trying to achieve? What stakeholder value are you trying to drive? What is the purpose for this? And so this book really does help take you through that mechanism of a structured approach to be able to, achieve something real at the end, some real outcomes. And, and really, I mean, you want to effectively manage your data analytics and improve them and improve your company. So, or et cetera. So from a strategic value of analytics, when we're thinking about like the value Bill's going to get is he's going to have an amazing vacation and learn a lot and come back and share it with all of us. So that's a great value statement. So but a business perspective, when we're trying to encourage leaders or people that really aren't into business analytics, that's just not on their mindset. They've heard it, but it hasn't become a reality because they're so busy doing the day-to-day. How do we kind of sell that or like encourage or convince people that doing this effort the results will be more than they're expecting?
I have a whole chapter called Analytics in an Enterprise Context, which is just for those people. Because again, analytics project cannot succeed in isolation, like a little, something on the side, right? If you want to build analytics solutions that are actually going to give your company ability to make better decisions, it needs to be looked at enterprise context. So things like understanding, again, what is maturity of your organization? Because if you are, a strategist, if you are an executive, if you are a manager, it's in your power to change your organization, right? So that you actually are able to implement this solution. It goes back to data governance. It goes back to data quality. It goes back to building the right analytics architecture, right? You need a pipeline, right? If you want real-time analytics, well, you need a pipeline that allows you to receive and analyze data real time. If you want to do, say, big data analytics, for example, from social media reviews, you need to set up a pipeline. You need to hire the people who are able to do it. So all of those things, and again, how we say there's nothing is free in this life, right? So good analytics is not free. So if someone is a strategic thinker and manager, they need to understand that you have to invest. You have to invest in data pipeline. You have to invest in, our integration tools. You may need to invest in a data lake or lake house if you need to house all this data. You need to build the team. You need to give the team opportunity to study business, to understand business. You need to have your business people learn a little bit more about data, right? So maybe you need to give them a little bit of training, right? And some support so that they actually understand why am I responsible for data quality, or what's data governance anyway, or why can't we have customer data in 3 different databases all over the place and expect to have a customer dashboard which is accurate? So companies need to invest in that. There's another chapter in there, and I didn't go too deep because, again, so much was written, but about different ways how performance is measured in organization. Because a lot of analytics is about measuring performance, measuring KPIs. Are we achieving our goals, our quarterly and annual goals? But how you set up what you want to measure is going to impact how your people behave, right?
Yeah.
So that's a very famous saying that tell me how you will measure me and I'll tell you how I will behave. So before you give your analytics team a task, okay, let's measure this and this and this indicator, you have as a manager or as a strategic leader, you have to think, is that the right measurement? Is it going to encourage the right behavior in our employees, right? So someone has to think about it. And sometimes it just gets lost. Okay, let's measure something. Let's put a few things on a dashboard to keep everyone happy. But if they're not the right thing, then people are gonna fake their data, or people will, every surgeon will take the most easy case if that's how they're measured, and nobody will want to treat people, who have hard cases, right? Because it's gonna impact my statistics.
Right. And you're just really not measuring anything of value anyway. It's just an exercise for the OKRs
And
and
dashboarded.
tracking to them and all of that. And I think we've all seen that in different organizations where you look at others or you look at yourself and you're like, I'm not really sure that that was the best at the time. And you're right, it does drive a lot of behaviors. It drives behaviors of where people spend their time, where you spend money, the lost time, like, you lost opportunity because you could have been working on something else that truly had value where this did not. And sometimes people don't, have the ability to, once those are established, to actually, pivot away from them, meaning, it's there, it's measurable, it's being reported out, and thou shalt, die, but, you until this is done, where it's like the cycle of saying, are we really driving value by that? Can we change based on the information that we're learning and in growing? And maybe we need to be flexible in these, still measure, still move, but not be so rigid and stay on something that was, defined one day, but should have been changed at a later point.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And when you think about that, I mean, do you think that kind of goes into the misconceptions that business leaders have about data analytics, that they hear something, there's group consensus, some people bring forth some maybe initial data or long-term data, and then they stay on that? How are are there ways that we can get past these types of like misconceptions with business leaders?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as the challenge I think we always faced as business analysts, that sometimes business stakeholders want to, to come up with their solutions based on what they know, right? And instead of explaining to us what the problem is, they come to you and tell you, hey, I want this, this, and this, right? And they basically tell you what they think they want. Same goes with analytics, right? It's maybe the business person doesn't necessarily know all of the capabilities of modern analytics, especially advanced analytics. So they may be asking for what they know instead of maybe being more open to, this is what I want to solve. For example, I want to optimize how my, I don't know, delivery fleet is used so that, we manage our costs. That's a broad task, optimization task, which could be solved using analytics. But if you just say, hey, I just want to know how many trucks I need to, rent on what days of the week based on the average, number of trucks I needed the same season last year, maybe a little bit like looking backwards. So I think that we have to help stakeholders again to be open-minded to potential solutions, right?
Right.
But to do that, we need to learn more about analytics, right? We need to understand what is feasible, what is possible, how it depends on data, and become more like consultants. Just like in general, when we talk about the future of business analysis, we talk more about, a good business analyst could do what a management consultant does, right?
That's true.
That sometimes organizations pay a lot of money to. And, if now AI can do all of the decks for them, those decks still need to be based on the knowledge of organization. And this is what
Right.
business analysts have, right? But
Right.
now you can use the same knowledge of organization and apply it to a new direction. How can I now use analytics to help solve those
Right.
problems? So I think business analysts who work on these projects, they need to become friends, with data architects, with data governance team, with enterprise architecture team. They need to be more engaged with the solutions. And what's another interesting thing, and I think it's good for business analysts to think about it this way, because how many um, um, systems now, like in-house systems, get replaced by off-the-shelf software, right?
Right.
So we don't really develop that much software inside organizations unless you're really huge. However, with analytics, I think a lot of analytics is still developed in-house because it's so specific to your company, and especially if it's a decision-making analytics, it's kind of part of your know-how. So these projects are often still managed with your internal development analytics team, with your internal data architecture teams supporting them. So you have that opportunity to build that solution in-house.
Right. And you think about the different solutions. A lot of them are, installed not in the basic manner, but not all the reporting, not all the data, because people haven't gotten to the point of implementation to where they can get into robust reporting to then be able to pull and aggregate with other solutions. So having that ability to be able to, move past it or be able to engage with those stakeholders to start the conversations on what it means to have data. I have X data. What does that mean to you as an architect? Or from data governance, how can we improve it so when it is brought together, it does make more sense and it is more useful. Okay. All right. Should I open it up for more questions before we continue? Does anybody have anything that they'd like to ask? Nope. Okay. Got plenty more. So I did put in the chat the table of contents from your book, and because there is so much rich material, but I wanted to ask you, do you have a favorite chapter? Do you have a favorite chapter that you want to explore a little bit more?
I think my favorite chapter is analytics in enterprise context. And we talked about it a little bit. There's more to it as well. So again, because it is, in any organization, you can try your hardest, but unless the enterprise as a system is ready to support that initiative, nothing is going to happen. So I think besides maturity and besides choosing how you measure things, you also have to think about the risks. You have to think about how to protect your data. And risks, it's interesting how analytics creates new risks that maybe organizations didn't know about before, right? Because again, every new technology opens up to new ways of violating that technology or compromising that technology. So I think that that's another part where, that knowledge helps you understand what are you risking. The ethics of using analytics are you building an algorithm that can potentially be biased? Again, are you relying on generative AI that may hallucinate? How do you set up those guardrails? So just to give you some, because again, with every technology, you can try the hardest, but as soon as you have one bad PR experience, your company may stop using it. How I used to work in this organization, and one of my business stakeholders told me, what is my worst nightmare? That I will wake up tomorrow morning and Toronto Star, which is, one of our big newspapers here, will splash our company on its front page in the worst possible way. Like, when someone complains or something really bad happens. So that happens with analytics and AI solutions. And companies sometimes make really big blunders, right? And once you made the blunder, it's very hard to recover. And then all of your efforts, can be kind of sidetracked for a while. So I think learning about how AI fails, how these solutions, if they're not checked, if they're not properly tested, or if they're not properly monitored, bad things can happen. So I know we had a recent example where Air Canada chatbot gave customer incorrect advice, right? And there was very bad publicity after a chatbot, of course, was taken down. There's some insensitive, things that these AI solutions may do. So a part of, again, going back to stakeholders and business analysts, both of them, when they try to develop these AI solutions or analytic solutions, they have to think how we will monitor that it doesn't deviate, that it doesn't, get bad ideas, so to speak. That how do we measure whether it's biased? And bias is something that comes from data, often from training data. So if you train your predictive model on a bad data set, you end up with bad biased model.
Right.
So again, business people may not necessarily understand it, because first you need to understand, well, how these models are trained. How do they think? It's not like machine learning model is just thinking like you and I think. It has learned from many examples that were captured as data, as literally as rows of data, row after row after row. The model is learning pattern. So how you choose the rows in that training data set to feed the model, that's how it will learn. So one example was, I think it was an Amazon hiring algorithm many years ago. They were using it to select candidates for interviews based on all of their resume details and profile details, etc. And it turned out that it was favoring, you guessed it, male candidates for engineering jobs, for software engineering.
That's
Why?
shocking.
Why? Because when the training data set they used was not balanced between male and female candidates, because historically they had more male software engineers. They just kind of loaded the whole thing up. What does the machine learning algorithm do? Well, it looks like 90% of all these people were male. It must be an important factor in a quality job candidate, right? So that's something that people need to think about, and machine learning engineers and business analysts need to understand, because again, you may not realize that you're getting this genie out of a bottle and you don't know how many new mistakes it can make, right? So I think that just kind of great to get excited, but also understand how to get it right is important.
Right. Because a lot of times when you're thinking risk, did I secure the authentication of these tools with one another? Did I properly secure the service accounts? Is it behind the right level of authentication? But then you get to the real meat of it. It's like, okay, did we give it data that it's interpreting, understanding, learning, but the data set isn't robust enough, the information isn't, and it's taking that natural bias because you gave it something, and then not doing that human check of like, does that really make sense? The smell check, like are the outcomes really what we're expecting, or should we have done something different? So that is an excellent tip to get you out of that traditional thinking. Like, just don't expect the outcomes to be everything that you want, because it's giving you back what you gave it, and you need to make sure that you gave it the right information, right? Not, you're not talking just about like, is your data clean? Is there data integrity? But also, is the data a rich enough data set to really provide back the results that you're looking for?
Yeah, to give you the model that is actually fit,
Right.
a correct fit for your problem that you're trying to solve, right?
Okay.
Is it possible to retrain a model if you find that it is going right? You don't have to just destroy the model and start from
No, you
scratch.
don't. There is many ways you can retrain the model. You can basically say, because model is trained on features, which are your
Mhm.
factors, right? So
Right.
you can remove a feature. Maybe you discover, because models decay, maybe that feature that was a very good predictor is no longer a good predictor. So you can remove features, you can retrain models. Sometimes you need to retrain model on a completely new training set. Sometimes maybe you just add more. In addition, I mean, some machine learning models are built on a reinforcement learning premise, which means that every time I make a prediction, because what's the most important, that machine learning model makes a prediction. It's never exact, right? It's always the most likely one, which sometimes may not be accurate. So when machine learning model makes the next prediction, for example, let's just take price optimization. So Bill, maybe you already have your tickets, but imagine you're just buying tickets to Cancun. You go into the airline website and it's going to optimize the price for what they know about Bill, and is Bill often flying and so on. So it's going to try to give you the price which you're likely still to find attractive, but which will, benefit the company. So if I were to make those predictions to what price point suits different customers, Then I need to learn from the result. Did the person actually click on it? Did they eventually buy it? Did they buy another flight at the same price? Or did they go and buy from another company? And that result comes back into the model as reinforcement learning and becomes a new record in my training data set, right? So that's where this, I guess, the whole data science comes in, and this is what machine learning engineers do. They don't just develop models, but they monitor them. They constantly reevaluate. They may tweak them, and it basically it's not like a solution that you implement it and you're done. You wash your hands and you go. No, you have to monitor it and you have to make sure that it's still predicting accurately for you. And if not, then you have to do something about it.
I did not know that. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
So to expand upon that, so from like a business analyst, so you start on this project, right? You continue to
Yeah.
work on it, you're going through all the paces. But at some point it sounds like you're really never done, right? There's always that next step or that next evolution. So how would you as a BA help to position yourself to continue on once the initial outcomes are achieved, right? Like I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
from like a future of your career or your work on it. How do you
Mm-hmm.
take some of these concepts and build that into your value add that you're selling to your leaders
That's a
to
really
keep you on it?
interesting question, right? Because you know, part of if you talk about, say, if you take a machine learning model, right, and once you support it through the whole development life cycle, at some point, once it's implemented, that monitoring, it could be more of a like machine learning engineer or data scientist job. It's not necessarily a job of a BA to do the monitoring, but you may be stay in the loop of the results. What is
Okay.
the result? The but before that, you define the requirements for that monitoring stage, right? It's like when we
Mhm.
do transition requirements or implementation requirements. You need to have some requirements that say, the solution must allow to monitor accuracy. We need to make sure that we don't have any, deviations. You set the guardrails for this. And I think in many cases, it's a bit of like um, iterative development, right? You develop maybe a smaller model that is, focused on, a few predictions. You see how it develops. You see which of the features that you use are actually good. Maybe you develop more, right? Because you may embed your analytics in different parts of the process. So you maybe test and learn here, test and learn there. The other part where business analysts can play a role is in a gradual adoption of analytics. Because, we talked about predictive like, and prescriptive analytics as, kind of the ultimate. Now, think about how business people are not always ready for prescriptive analytics because it is scary, right? Like, first of all, sometimes they may be scared literally for their jobs, right? That's another big conversation. But even if it's just say automating some part of my process, how do I know I can trust this model?
Right.
So often what happens in real organizations, we don't go all the way into full automation. We first implement some predictive modeling where a human being is still kind of overseeing the process. So you'll see here is the result from my predictive model. Does it look okay? Does it make sense? Should I check it? Uh, you may look at that result and maybe add some more of your expert, I guess, knowledge on top of it to make a decision. So decision doesn't necessarily have to be fully automated and given to AI algorithm. It could just give you suggestions and recommendations, and then your human experts look at it. So that may take quite a while, this process of building and improving and building trust, because if depending on what is the prediction, if you really need a very high level of accuracy and you're not achieving it yet, then you're not done. Then
Right.
you continue, you monitor, you look at different factors, you experiment, you discover what else, and it may take time to raise that accuracy level to the point where your business stakeholders are actually comfortable with that automation.
Okay.
So I think that is really important. And then it's like we used to do this with automation of process flows. Okay, the
Hmm.
simple case is going to be a flow through, and the hard case is going to go into a queue, and expert will look at it. Some
Right.
similar approach can also work here because you probably heard in the news all these stories how some companies decided to go AI first. They fired everybody, big
Hmm.
layoff, splashed in the news, and then half a year later they're quietly rehiring people. So I
Right.
think that preventing that by gradually monitoring, evaluating, seeing what can be adopted, what needs. So making that journey together, I guess, with your
Right.
company.
So when you talk about the different levels, my mind goes back to service desk L1, L2, where you get something in, you look at it, it's like a more advanced, and you bump it up to the next
Yeah.
level. So
Mm-hmm.
from you're
Mm-hmm.
saying here, it's kind of this in the same concept, right? Like you look at it, you're not done. You just because you rolled something out doesn't mean that you're done. And then your role can help with that as well as advance as well to get the
Yeah,
right people looking at it re
for sure. For sure. And
relearning it
even
from
even if that L1 maybe say can be handled by AI algorithm because
right.
it's standard problem, it's a frequently asked question,
Hmm.
sure. And then L2 goes to the analyst or to other people to investigate and maybe
Right,
come up with more rules or yeah.
right, right. And I mean, and that's, I mean, you think about it, that's probably the model that people are trying to achieve, right? I mean, I would hope that a company would not implement something and walk away and saying it's good without really, keeping their eye on it. Yeah, fingers crossed. I think some leaders are still in the mode of AI and the what it can do, and then it puts it into a PowerPoint and some other types of things you were talking about, meeting notes, and had this process flow in my head as far as like, yes, how to automate that, but that's like the beginning. I mean, the real work is the rest of this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So, Bill, did that help? Okay. All right. So, in at the end, does it ever really stop learning and stop being retrained? Probably not, right? Things
No,
change.
no.
It's just
Because
a non,
decay is real, right? Because again,
right.
predictive models are probabilistic, right? So they
Hmm.
constantly calculate probabilities. So as the real life changes, the relationships between what you want to predict and the data you use to predict, those relationships may be changing. For example, Steph, last year you really love these types of shoes. I could make a predictive model which will help me predict which shoes Steph will click on. But
Hmm.
hey, by the way, suddenly you had this, light bulb went in your head or something else happened and you don't like those shoes anymore. Well, until I figure it out, my model is suddenly much less
Right.
accurate, right?
So in thinking about that, like the ever changing, right? People's tastes, preferences, bad data to begin with, bias, etc. What do you think is like an underappreciated skill or ability within the analytics profession that if you can continue to build that as a key skill for yourself or just make sure you're aware of it would be helpful. Any of those kind of skills or things that people should just really it's just should be part of their toolkit.
Oh, I had a whole chapter.
Did I come up? Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that I mean, if you talk about analytics professionals, right? So people who are say tech first, right? So people who learn Python and R and all the machine learning and tools and big data, and they
Hmm.
discover Hadoop and all that. So for the techies, I think they need to understand how what they're doing needs to be connected to the business, real business problem, and that they need to understand what the data stands for, right?
Right.
Because sometimes you may choose, there's this, they're called spurious correlation. So when two things are correlated mathematically, but they have no connection from business perspective, right? So you can't really use one to predict another. So you need to understand the business so that actually your predictive models, are based on real concepts. So that's for techies. It's almost like, with business analysis. Then for business analysts, on the other hand, you cannot work on an analytics project or help to implement AI solution unless you really understand like what is artificial intelligence, or how we approach an artificial intelligence, what is machine learning, how it's all based on data. If you just think that chatbot, chat GPT is thinking and learning from you, and you don't understand that it actually learns from data, and you tell it to draw four dogs, give you a picture of these four dogs, and it cannot do it, right? Because it doesn't do math. So if you don't understand the limitations of these tools, you're not going to be very successful. So you do need to go a little bit more techy and understanding kind of the the technology behind it all.
Okay, so that's really useful because a lot of times people not overlook, but they think that, okay, going forward, all of the skills that they've learned in the past or the skills that they're truly learning may or may not be used because we have all this AI. But really what I'm hearing you say is like you still need to focus and have your core competencies to be able to then be successful. It's just not, okay, I'm going to go out and we're going to embrace it. You still need to have those skills that you would use even if you didn't have AI, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And again, it goes back to that change in perspective. It's not about whether
Okay.
AI can do your documentation for you for any type of project. We also need to think about new types of projects, the projects
Okay.
that implement AI. And again, you can use a machine learning, to improve infrastructure in the city, to improve electricity transmission, to improve manufacturing, to improve design on new products. It's not just about, generating PowerPoint presentations faster, right? Or doing your media summaries.
Okay.
So it's just a different type of technology that you apply to other problems in companies.
Okay. Well, your book is definitely going to help people with that. So they can maintain the confidence in the skills they have, think a little bit differently, continue to build on it, and still be, so there shouldn't be any fear in tackling that next type of projects or working with AI or bringing those analytical results, because if you've been working or learning your BA skills, you have one step up already. You're already ahead of the game as far as some other people. Because for me, that was one of the one of the questions, like in thinking about your book and in thinking about all the classes and the different things that you do, is like the evolution of this and how do you go from what you were teaching people before and then evolving into this. And so it's not really like, okay, you know, all of your classes are like, okay, we did them, now we're going to focus here. You're just adding on, you're just extending, you're just helping people to, open their minds and think forward thinking and just add some new skill sets. So it's nothing is lost. You're just gaining. Am I thinking correctly there?
Yeah, no, you have to grow. I mean, it's the first book was more about just foundations of business analysis itself, but now we are looking, and I just posted a course, data management course that I have, which is also for business analysts. But now you are expanding, the areas in which you can do business analysis, right? It's kind of like a different dimension. Like you are able to work on a data heavy project or on analytics projects, not just, the project where the only artifact you ever need to do is process map, you're golden, you'll
Right?
implement, off the shelf workflow tool, you're good to go. But this is like a very, very different approach. So I think that, and if you go back to BA mindset, which is my favorite topic and its principles, the
Mm-hmm.
last one is learn, adapt, and thrive. And I think it's right now it's even more important. You constantly have to learn. You have to adapt to the development of new technology. You can thrive, but to thrive, you have to think beyond your own needs. Oh, will AI actually help me do my meeting notes? Or can I ask AI to draft user stories for me? That's just for you. But we have to think about how we can use that technology. Like one of the videos we watch in our course is how machine learning can be used to predict the breakage of water pipes so that they get fixed through preventative maintenance before they break, right? So real life problems. Or how can you use machine learning to determine, which people need financial help most, or, how to help students study better, to think in how you can actually use it, to improve the overall happiness in the world and reduce waste. Forget those PowerPoints. Maybe we don't even need them anymore, right?
Okay. So this is good to know, right? We can still we still have the ability to learn, and we can leverage what we've had in the past. So Bill, good news on your vacation. While you have quite a bit of amazing content to read, you can still somewhat coast because of all of your existing BA skills. So there you go. I'm just giving you a little reprieve because
Thank you.
because there will be quizzes. I mean, there'll be quizzes in the book,
I'm looking
but
forward to it.
also afterwards. So we'll be testing your knowledge. Okay.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
And not on the technical side, but for the organizations where they have, I don't know, recently in the past year or two, created these data lakes and made advances at the enterprise level to get their data into, some type of form that they can do some analytics that are not specific to a particular tier or business unit or something like that. Is there a good way or some easy ways to help sell the benefits of including data architecture folks in projects that aren't necessarily data projects, but this department is working on this project, this department's working on this project. Where I am right now, they don't always involve data at the beginning, and they might change two attributes. But if they didn't tell data and they didn't involve data, it takes 3 months for the folks that are running this data lake over here to realize there's something wrong, because the people in the business are still using their business application, right? They're getting what they need out of it and they're doing their thing, but it's not feeding the right data necessarily to the data lake. And we have to. I'm trying to help change the culture of that. Like, hey, getting the data folks involved in the beginning, even if they say it's not, there's only one or two things, let's involve them and just make sure, and is there any good way? I guess that's all I'm asking from your
First
experience.
of all, I sympathize. I've seen this before, Katie. I think that part of it, and one of the ways to make it kind of a little bit more formalized, because when something becomes part of your methodology and more formalized, it's easier, right? It becomes more enforceable, is to have some kind of formal data governance program, even if it's just one person responsible for data governance, because then what you can say is, for example, every single project. So one of the ways we've done it, whenever there was a new project being initiated, a part of that, the overall like PMO methodology was to do an architecture impact assessment. So architecture team was always like, say, maybe one representative from architecture team would be involved, and every single project we need to assess the impacts. And one of the items on that impact assessment template was data impacts. So whether it's a data architect or it's someone from data governance, again, whoever you have, that person needs to be involved in this initial assessment where, say, business analyst or stakeholder says, we're going to do this, we're going to change that, da-da-da. And then the data architect may ask, so are you going to introduce new data entity, or you're going to add new codes, or you're going to change how you use this data source? So they can ask those data-related questions, and it's their job then to highlight that there is a data impact. And then through that data architect, you can notify whoever will be impacted or consult with them. Or if I'm changing this over here, this project now is responsible, for changing those fields in data warehouse or updating data model or including them in data feed, but at the very least informing whoever is downstream, right? So somehow through this either impact assessment or maybe there's like a data governance assessment step early in every project, that would be ideal. But that of course needs to be kind of, even if you bring it up, you need to formalize it in some way.
Thank you. And we are trying but thank you. And I will make sure for, as we kind of do a quarterly assessment, we try to add little things here and there to just keep making it better, right? Continuous improvement. That is one that just has not, for whatever reason, is not taken there. And so but to your point, I have to reiterate, and if I include it more in impact analysis and things like that, and just keep saying it in different areas and different applications, right? Hopefully that will stick and as we do mature the processes more, we can make sure that there is some data governance or data architecture person involved. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Maybe if you can give them an example of what would happen if you don't notify or don't tell anyone about it, how things may fall apart, like reports or customers are not getting the same thing, like giving some measurable, effects of not doing things right, if possible, of course.
That's a good idea. Maybe I'll meet with data with the architect team and ask them for one or two common examples, right, where they've run into it with other projects, and I can say very specifically, hey, you remember when we did this? They weren't involved until here, and it caused this. Maybe it caused rework, maybe it caused improper reporting, something like that. But to get examples from them, not create them, but actually get true life examples. Okay. Thank you.
Good luck.
That's excellent advice. Excellent advice. Okay, well, it looks like we're almost at time. Katie or anyone else, do you have any other questions for Yulia? I know I've taken up most of her time. Had a long list of things that I've been dying to ask her, and appreciate all of the amazing insights of Yulia. This was fantastic. So many, first off, the foundation and how you have presented the book makes it for very easy learning. So we thank you for that, because, as you talked about, one of the challenges here is really getting a book to where it's not too heavy and it's not too light, but people can actually apply practical learning. That is so important. I mean, in the ability for everyone to either learn something, upskill, and be able to take all of this value-driven information in a manner that we can relate to leaders and stakeholders. And like Katie's example, you've got the principles here, but how do you then go back and apply it within your organization to really get these same results? So your insights there are so very, very helpful. And we'll be definitely asking you more of those in the future, like how do we make this a reality? Okay. And so before we wrap up, does anybody have any other questions at all? Okay, and we provided the links. Julie, if you want to repost them again, if you've enjoyed today, I have completely enjoyed today and having all of you here. Please take a look at the book. If not, it sounds like we convinced Yulia to come to at least one IIBA Bluegrass event and really talk some more and share some more insights. Maybe pick that favorite chapter of yours and come back with us, because we do want to hear more, because this is so interesting and relevant and so very helpful. So we greatly appreciate you, and this amount of time is never enough. I always have a stack of questions, so I'm going to keep them for our next time together. And thank you
so much. Thank you for the questions, and I really appreciate it. And as you can tell, I like to talk about this, so you also have to stop me once in a while. But it's really great to talk about it, and I think we need to chat about those things. So always wonderful to reconnect with you.
Right. Great. Well, thank you again very, very much. The IIBA Bluegrass chapter is so thankful for you, and I personally am as well. And thank you for being here with us on BA Book Nook, as well as the rest of you. I mean, this was a great night, and thank you so much.
Have a wonderful summer, everyone. Until next time, thank you.
Until next time, thank you. Thank you,
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you.